What is it you fear most in this world? The monsters of fantasy, beastly creatures as kids we believe hide in our closets, or the ones that stay hidden, out of sight, within ourselves? The monsters that commit atrocities each day, all while wearing the face of your neighbor. The story of Monster is renowned for its complexity, its comments on humanity and reflection on free will. This anime depicts the darkness within mankind, what you and I are capable of, both for better and for worse. What I hope to convey to you through this video is the message that Urasawa carefully wove into this series. But as I said, this anime is complex, sometimes hard to understand or follow. Events and information told out of order to a point that might leave you jumbled, unsure of who the real monster is. Here I've reordered the chain of events in the story into a linear timeline, highlighting those that are most important while analyzing the actions of each character to truly explain and make sense of this anime as a whole. And stuck at the center of it all, Dr. Tenma, a man damned the minute he enacted the moral act of saving a dying child. But before he even graduates med school, there's something that we need to address first, something vital to the entire case of the monster, that being the choices that led to its creation. Twins, born into this world by a mother who has cursed those around her, vowing to bring retribution upon the two men before her, and if not her, then her children would carry out her will. The two men standing before her, Klaus Chapek, with him his right-hand man, Peter Chapek, the two who killed her husband for growing unconscious and attempting to flee with his pregnant wife. Her husband had been part of a eugenics experiment, led by Klaus to create the perfect human that would lead the human race, and desertion from this mission would not go unpunished. The kids were born in Prague, Czechoslovakia at an interesting period of European history. In 1975, amidst the rise of communism, East Germany as well as the Czech state had been absorbed into the USSR, with both the Stasi, a German secret police, and the Czech SP collaborating to keep this experiment off record. The children were able to stay with their mother in Prague in an apartment with an overhanging sign depicting 3 frogs. For their safety, the twins were dressed exactly the same, the boy donning the same dress and hair ribbon as his sister. While initially this may seem pointless, as Klaus is already aware of the existence of 2 children, so how would this help hide their identity? It isn't him they are hiding the existence of twins from. Prior to the beginning of the eugenics experiment, Klaus had fallen in love with the mother of the twins. When he saw them born, he, in hand, fell in love with them as well, their birth being a turning point for Klaus. We can assume that from events that I'll get to later, that Klaus convinced their mother to do this, to assist in hiding the existence of 2 kids from the rest of the organization. They can't make both of them disappear, since the eugenics experiment has already been claimed a success, but they can perform minor damage control. Around this time, Klaus also began pulling the brakes on another unethical experiment he started, the brainwashing of children to create superior pupils, which had been going on for nearly 20 years. Klaus would read odd nihilistic stories to these children in a house known as the Red Rose Mansion, in a process that would go something like this. First, the children would get attached to the stories, second to the room, and third to the storyteller. It's unshown whether or not the twins attended these reading circles that Klaus would do, but both are shown to be attached to Klaus's books he would read, as well as the room itself, so we can assume that given these variables, the circle readings included the twins for a short time, so the readings continued to at least 1981, before Klaus ended them. The children involved in these readings showed great changes in their behavior, most becoming violent and antisocial. Somehow through this reading circle, Klaus began rewriting their psyche, warping their personalities. Children being like clay are easy to manipulate, and Klaus had taken that to the extreme. The kids began to suffer from memory loss, most eventually committing suicide. A few survivors often lived miserable lives, their children committing suicide, their marriages not lasting more than 2 years. It was obvious that these readings were doing something sinister. From what we know, there are 3 books that were read to the children: The Nameless Monster, The God of Peace, and The Man with the Big Eyes and the Man with the Big Mouth. The one with the men would teach the kids that you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, having a devil make a deal with a man while one refused, both unhappy with their chosen outcome. The God of Peace held a moral to the story that the greatest of people hold a monster within. Nobody is safe from beholding the darkness inside. And finally, the monster with no name, whose message was a little more cryptic. Its story depicted a monster who longed for a name, living within individuals like a parasite, giving them strength in return for their name, but eventually outgrowing them, becoming bored, and eating them. He eventually resided in a prince, and he loved this life. He chose not to eat the prince, but instead ate the king and his servants. He killed everyone in the town, but after that fact, he was alone. There was no one to call him by the name he desperately wanted. That name was Johann. The twins were especially attached to this book in particular, seen holding it quite often. Having attended the brainwash readings, it seemed that their memories of this time and their life are fuzzy, almost as if rewritten or wiped. While it's unclear what name or names the twins originally had, we know that Anna was the girl's first given name. But since we know the boy was treated as an extension of Anna for protection reasons, there's a chance he existed with no name until he was at least 6 years old. Given that fact, it's possible that the name the boy decided to give himself derived from this picture book. The Johann we know likely projected himself onto the monster with no name, the monster named Johann. In 1981, by the time the twins were 6, Klaus and Chapek come to collect one of the kids. Well, at first it seems that they have a vile intent. It becomes clear that Klaus has something else in mind. They force the mother to give up one of her kids, a choice that no mother should have to make. The children plead for her not to let go of them, but in her eyes we see a decision being made. At first, she pushes the one that is Johann out, but stops herself, unsure. She then pushes the one that is Anna to the men. This split decision carrying immense weight with the boy. Did their mother get them mixed up? Did she mean to give me away? Or Anna? Which one of us was unwanted? Anna is taken to the Red Rose mansion, locked in a dark area, devoid of any light, unsure of what was a wall, what was up, what was down. She counts the amount of meals delivered to her over this time, losing count at 23. Eventually, she's taken from this chamber into a room with 44 people, including herself. Klaus. 42 died that day. The people present at the Red Rose mansion that day were the only people who knew about the twins and their mother's existence. With their death, they could live freely, and so could Klaus. 4 more people died that day, a man, mother, and 2 children. Even if anyone figured out the existence of 2 kids, or of their mother or Klaus's crimes, buried in that rose garden were 4 with near identical features to them. He successfully faked their deaths and erased their existence. When the 42 dropped dead, Klaus had told Anna to run home. She dashed to the 3 Francs, and there, standing alone, was her brother, welcoming her home. Their mother was nowhere to be seen. From eyewitness statements, she had been taken along with Anna, but to a different location. Anna is psychologically broken after what she went through, weeks of solitary confinement on top of watching 42 die in front of her. Her brother tells her to share it all with him, which she does. She recounts every painstaking detail of the events, leaving nothing up to the imagination. Johann takes these memories and burdens them on himself, treating them as if they were his own. Why Johann does this is convoluted. We can assume that a great part of it is his complicated upbringing, being treated as if he is Anna, existing as just a body double. He has donned this role to a T, stating that I am you and you are me. He is Anna, and Anna's memories are his. The boy takes his sister, and they leave the 3 Frogs, burning the place down as they leave. They journey towards the East German border, running from their past. Their memories of this time in Prague come in and out. They sometimes remember pieces, but the brainwashing has left them affected greatly mentally. The twins venture till reaching a point of starvation, trapped in a land that is devoid of life, a barren landscape. They collapse, unable to go any further, but are saved when a Soviet soldier, General Wolf, finds the children. He orders the other soldiers to wrap them in blankets and take them to medical aid immediately. When they're brought back from the brink of death, Wolf talks to the young boy, intrigued by him. The boy has an expression that Wolf can't quite understand. He asks the boy what it is he feels. The boy responds to him with the words, "I will soon show you." Unsure of what he's implying, Wolf laughs it off, at least for now. The boy says he has no name, to which Wolf gives him the name Johann, seeing that he has some sort of attachment to that name. The children are taken to an orphanage, but much to the rejection, 2 separate ones. Anna is taken to Kinderheim 47, a place that looks and operates like a normal orphanage. Johann, on the other hand, is taken to Kinderheim 511, a special orphanage that acts as a laboratory for unethical human experimentation. General Wolf had seen something in that boy, something intelligent but dark. Dangerous. Honed properly, he could prove to be a great soldier. Not just that, a great leader. 511's experimentations was an extension of Klaus's work after his disappearance, run by a man named Nikolai Petrov. Their goal, altering children's personalities to suit a means. Due to biased information, we never quite understand what the original goal of 511 was while under Petrov's operation. Petrov states that he was trying to raise kids in the ideal eye of society, altering their personalities to fit that, but if that was his goal, why would he leave the orphanage so suddenly? There had to have been something going on that caused him to flee. It could have been a number of things. Maybe it was his interview with Johann, where he sees a boy who clearly believes he doesn't exist, given a name yet still nameless, a monster living inside him, which Johann says is what he fears most. It could have been the instructors did something that caused him to abandon the experiment. Either way, in his disappearance, true terror struck the orphanage. The instructors had infighting due to the power vacuum that was created, some shifting the children's brainwashing towards creating emotionless killing machines. The children, just like during the reading circles at the Red Rose Mansion, were losing their memories, unable to remember themselves as they were rewritten or wiped. In a desperate attempt, knowing they could not hope to remember themselves, they tried to remember each other. As long as someone knew their name, there was a chance they could someday regain their sense of self. Again, just as what occurred at Rose Mansion, the children became violent, nihilistic, and devoid of self. Johann, having been born with no sense of self due to his mother using him as a double for Anna, was not as affected by this. After all, he had been through this brainwashing before. What more was there for him to lose? He took advantage of this situation and used the animosity between the kids and instructors to convince them to kill each other. Some of the children hid, others killed till the orphanage was empty, only corpses remaining. Sitting above it all, propped on a throne at the top of the steps, Johann, watching over the bloodshed, reveling in the chaos. It seems that Johann, washed to the memories of his past, holds great lust for violence, like every other child who has faced the same fate. But he remains unique, different in some way, hell-bent on being the last one standing at the end of the world. His path to destruction starts at the end of 511's existence. An instructor, the only one to not partake in the massacre, approaches Johann, asking him what on earth he did. Hatred is created when people gather. I just poured a little oil on it. All he did was convince them there was a reason to the murder. That's all it took. Few survived. None were granted a kind life. We know of one besides Johann that was there, and there's an additional 2 older boys that were either present during the massacre or left just before. Of those 3, one had a strong love for hot cocoa. His name, Adolf. Another, a friend of Adolf, who loved this Saturday morning cartoon, The Magnificent Steiner. The third, a sociopathic child who desired to become just like Johann. The 3 left individually from the orphanage, all 3 forgetting themselves, their heads even foggy of each other, their memories not gone, but clouded, hidden from them in the dark recesses of their minds. The boy who loved the cartoon Magnificent Steiner was taken by the East German communists to become a spy, given the name Grimmer. The one who loved Coco wandered aimlessly, losing any sense of self, eventually taking the name Roberto. The third set to reunite with Johann 10 years after the 511 massacre, taken in by a financially well man. He took the name Christoph. Johann and Anna wandered from foster family to foster family. The families would take them in, and after they had served their purpose, Johann would kill them. They'd receive food and shelter, and once it was time to move farther west, Johann would wipe any trace that they'd been there. This entire time, Anna was oblivious to the murders, Johann doing his best for her not to find out, did not reveal the monster to his other half. His sister was the extension of him that was pure, that did not hold the demon within, devoid of emotion, capable of atrocities such as this. For now, Anna and Johann have forgotten about the mansion massacre, but the brainwashing, both from readings at Red Rose and at Kinderheim, had taken a greater toll on the boy. It remains unclear the effect this brainwashing would have, as many of Johann's memories before 6 are Anna's, being without a sense of individuality till they fled to Prague. His existence could be summed up as a jumble of lost memories and missing emotion. He often recites the words "I am you and you are me" to Anna, under the impression that he lives as and for Anna. He must protect his other half. He's the shadow that works in the dark, while the light shines in the flawless. It's safe to assume the reason they move farther west is to escape the communist regime, to a place where Anna will be safer. While his protection for Anna may seem like a contradiction to his desire to be the last person on Earth, if we take his rationale of Anna and him being the same person, allowing her to live is logical. Why would he kill himself? That's why he incited the massacre at the orphanage, why he murders the families that take him in, but keeps Anna alive. He's erasing his footsteps as well, covering his tracks as he moves, so that he can continue down this path of destruction without being traced. The same set of events occur following their migration to West Germany with the Lieberts. Having served their purpose of getting the twins across the border, they too have fulfilled their needs. Before the Lieberts are murdered, Klaus visited the exact same night. He looked over the twins sleeping in their bed until something clicked, seeming to know what is to come. Klaus had rushed to see the kids from a small mountain town in East Germany he fled to, attempting to turn over a new leaf and live out his days as a simple man. But seeing the children on TV with the Lieberts caused him to make a visit that must have awakened something in Johann, either conscious or subconscious. Maybe his mother's curse on Klaus, or all of the memories he shared with Anna. Whatever it was, it caused him to kill the Lieberts. But this time, it wasn't just the parents he wanted to kill, for Anna now knew the monster that lived beside her. It was time. Anna was in a country she'd be safe in. He no longer needed to exist. After all, as long as Anna was alive, so would he. To Johann, it didn't matter if he was dead or alive. Now, this decision to challenge death doesn't fit if his desire is to be the last standing in this world. Why would he stare death in the eye, tempting it to take his life? There's two possibilities. We know for one that Johann is nihilistic. He tempts death It means no more to him than life. But still, his desire to be the last man standing would not be reached. It could be that Klaus's presence in the twins' bedroom triggered the return of Johann's memories. We know he was awake when the man walked in, heard his voice, which could have caused him to remember, similar to Johann's goal of a perfect suicide later on when his memories returned to him once more. It may have been right then and there he wanted to kill the monster inside him by the hand of his other half. This theory also holds up given the fact that being shot in the brain would cause serious damage. After this event, Johann would once more forget his memories of Prague. This is the best way we can understand Johann and his actions, as the boy does not express his thoughts often, so we'll have to rely on theory building a lot and deduction. Anna realizes that Johann has been killing all the people that have taken them in. Johann gives her the pistol and points to his skull, telling her to shoot him there, wipe the pistol after, and throw it out the window, then make a run for it. She pulls the trigger, shooting her brother, but she doesn't run, instead going into a shock response to all the trauma. The police arrive at the scene, finding the Lieberts dead, the boy shot, and Anna in shock, a murder weapon having been thrown out the window before she entered the state. The police find the boy barely holding on to life, ordering an emergency delivery of him to a local hospital along with his sister. This hospital is home to a renowned brain surgeon capable of creating miracles. He's able to perform the most difficult surgeries at an extremely high success rate. Eisler Memorial Hospital is the home to the Japanese neurosurgeon Tenma Kenzel. I rewatched all 74 episodes of Monster before creating this video, and let's just say that meant I was watching anime in a variety of places. From the library to college corridors between classes, places where you don't really want to be blaring whatever you're watching. And that's why this video is sponsored by Raycon. I've been using Raycon's everyday earbuds since I was in high school, and this is actually the same pair I got 5 years ago on sophomore year. Still looking pristine despite that. Plus, Raycon has sent me a new pair, and they're in blue now. It's pretty cool. There's a lot of colors to choose from, and I've also been told this is an improved version from the ones I had 5 years ago. These earbuds are highly recommended by users, racking up tens of thousands of 5-star reviews, and there's no surprise there. The long battery life and charging case were extremely helpful when I was watching about 18 episodes a day. So if you want to get your own pair, now's the time. Raycon is currently having a holiday sale. If you click the link down below in the description, you can get 15% off your order. Besides these earbuds, Raycon has also made some great home and power tech, like the faucet filter and Magic 180 cable, to name a few. The everyday earbuds are super affordable compared to other brands, and as a guy that's used the same pair since high school, I can say they're well worth it. This holiday season, get premium audio and power tech at a great price. After this video, go to buyraycon.com/SockSensei to get 15% off your order. Leading up to the delivery of the dying boy, Tenma has had his morals shaken, becoming fed up with the hospital director, a man corrupt by greed. He puts lives of those that would provide him in the hospital with status, money, and publicity above others, weighing the saving of a life by what he would gain in return. While Tenma at first doesn't bat much an eye to this issue, after being switched at the last minute from a surgery of an injured construction worker to an opera singer, he realizes his severe neglect. The wife and child of the man he did not save confront him, asking why Tenma didn't save her husband. He was here first, before the singer. Why did he ignore the order of patience? His eyes are now opened, and when confronting the director of these issues, he dismisses it. People's lives are not equal, a belief that his daughter, Eva, Tenma's fiancée, shares. Disgusted by their ideals, Tenma vows to himself not to make this mistake again. As he prepares for the boy's operation, the director once more orders Tenma to operate on another, the mayor. Tenma rejects. The boy had arrived first and is the more difficult of the two procedures. Only he can save him. Other surgeons can perform the mayor's operation. The director insists Tenma operates on the mayor as he is going to give the hospital a large sum of money. He can't die before the funds are distributed to them. He needs to live for the sake of their pay raise. Tenma, unable to follow such unethical ideals, operates on the boy, keeping his morals intact, that all people are equal in life. But saving the boy's life brings grave consequences on the Tenma's world. Due to his decision to save the child, the mayor dies. No surgeon is on par with Tenma, the ones that operate on the mayor unable to reach his level of success. The director, pissed at Tenma's actions, demotes him from chief of surgery to a normal physician, halting his career growth, assuring that he'll never move up the chain and never get a new job. He is forced into limbo. Looking for some comfort in such a trying time, he reaches out to his fiancée, who proceeds to break off the engagement on the spot. Without his status, he is nothing to her. Tenma sinks into a dark place. He cries over the boy's bed. Is it so wrong that he saved his life? No, he assures himself. He was right. He was just in what he did. The others have a twisted sense of morality. They are overcome by greed. They're better off dead. The boy's eyes open upon hearing this. The hospital has gotten a lot of charity and gift donations for the twins, but this doesn't bring the director any sort of benefit. He shamelessly opens a bag of candy that lies as a gift in Johan's room. He, the new chief of surgery, and his right-hand man eat the candies before going about their day. Temma sinks into a more depressed state, having lost everything, getting completely wasted on a night unlike any other. The night 3 men die. Here are the facts. The hospital director was found dead in his study, the other 2 dead in their offices. At that same time, the twins miraculously disappeared. The investigation into their parents' murder left unfinished. Through a toxicity report, it is clear that a muscle relaxant, nitrate, was found inside the candies the men had eaten. They had been poisoned. The clear suspect here, with no testimonies or evidence, would be a doctor due to the nature of the killing, and Temma at that. He has a clear motive, being wronged by these individuals, and later benefits the most, being promoted to chief of surgery again. Despite these facts, Temma has a rock-hard alibi. He was at the bars all night and has no connections to these candies. There's some details that remain missing. The BKA investigator assigned to this case can't figure out. Lunge, a hyper-focused workaholic with a tick for air typing for the purpose of memory recall. If only he knew that nitrate was the same poison used at the Red Rose Mansion massacre that has ties to these missing twins. But alas, this event, along with all the survivors of it, was heavily covered up. With no evidence on Temma, all Lunge can do is look for something he's missed and question those involved in hopes of breaking new ground. Following her father's death, Eva tries to make amends with Temma, not because she realized the error of her ways or anything, but because she has lost her status as the director's daughter, and Temma had once more regained his status as the chief of surgery, meaning he could restore her to a position of notoriety. But Temma, being the stoic badass he is, walks away from this woman and into his future of saving lives equally, something those around him seem to have forgotten is the role of a doctor. Now you'd think we would pick back up right here given the time skip that occurs at this point in the story, but some vital events occur between these 2 dates. After fleeing the hospital, Johan takes Anna to Heidelberg to be adopted into a new family. Anna, suffering from severe amnesia since the murder of the Lieberts, remembers none of the events, both from that night and anything prior to it. She is fully convinced that these are her real parents, and after 5 months pass, Johan deserts the family, leaving Anna in their care. He decides on her 20th birthday he will come back to retrieve her. In 1987, Johan moves to Munich and lives under the name Franz Heinach. In 88, he leaves Munich and goes to Cologne, donning the name Michael Raycon. In 89, he leaves for Hanover, setting fire to the school he attended for a year to destroy his public records. He moves in with the Schumanns. Now in 1990, the state of Germany changes, the East and West merging together as the USSR crumbles, the Communist Party of the East being demolished, absorbed into the Democratic West. The Czech secret police are abolished as Czechoslovakia becomes a democratic state as well, but the SP still attempt to hold on to their power, albeit in the underground criminal world. Meanwhile, Johan finds a couple who have a deceased child coincidentally named Johann Liebert, and he moves in with them, the couple treating him as if their son had returned from the dead. At this time, Johan also began an underground bank that launders money, making dirty money or money that was stolen, robbed, etc., into clean, legitimate money. The bank was a game of sorts he tried out to see how he could control the wealth of the country. By 92, Johan had obtained all the knowledge he desired from the underground bank experiment. He had gathered that a man named Schubert controls the majority of the wealth in Germany. If he is able to get close to this man and get rid of him, then he can take his place. Since controlling a society's money is one of the 3 pillars to obtain to be able to control a country, he's the perfect target to move forward his desire to be the last man standing at the end of the world. If he seizes control of Germany and incites a new global conflict that he can deliberate like a puppet master, this desire becomes tangible. After digging into Schubert's life, he devises a 5-year plan to get close to him, present him with his long-lost son, gain his trust, and become his secretary of advisement. To do that, he must first ostracize the man, which means killing anyone he has a positive connection to. He first hunts down the mother of Schubert's son, Helena, and begins to live with her. She quickly takes the boy in, as he reminds her of the child of her best friend from Prague. As a service to her, she doesn't even think about turning him away. In 1993, Johan begins to tie up the loose ends, his foster parents across Germany. He hires a trio, one a locksmith named Junkers, to murder the middle-aged couples. This continues for the next 3 years, being a major case that Detective Lunge of the BKA is assigned to. Johan also leaves the underground bank at this time, the entity collapsing without his guidance, the members murdering each other in the power vacuum. In 1995, the locksmith Junkers is tied to the serial killings. His involvement is as the locksmith who opens the doors for the 2 others who act as the executioners. With the heat building on the 3, they have fulfilled their purpose and must be wiped to prevent any possible evidence leading back to Johan. So Johan arranges a meeting with the 3, but Junkers is able to escape escape, dodging death, running into the street, crying out monster, until he is quieted by a speeding car. Junkers is taken to a hospital in critical condition, there being only one man skilled enough to perform the life-saving surgery that he needs. Lunge, who has arrived at the hospital, has a chance reunion with Tenma, commenting on Tenma's intriguing presence and his ongoing cases. Despite the passage of time and lack of substantial evidence, Lunge is suspecting of the doctor all the same of the murders committed at the hospital. He has no choice, however, but to hope that Tenma saves the witness who is vital to solving the murder case of the middle-aged couples. The doctor successfully performs the operation, and Junkers is dispatched to Tenma's main hospital so he can watch over his patient's recovery. With the help of Tenma, Junkers recovers more than just what he had lost during that hit and run. The doctor's words strike a chord with him when he shares that it's never too late to turn your life around, to rise above what you were in the past. They motivate Junkers to give a full testimony on the monster that tried to kill him and what they were ordered to do, as long as Tenma is there with him. But just as he's about to make this life-changing decision, the officer outside his room is killed, and Junkers knows all too well who has come to pay him a visit. Here are the facts from that night. Junkers was admitted into Tenma's hospital per his request, despite Lunge's desire to have him transferred to the BKA immediately for questioning. The officer outside Junkers' room was found dead, Junkers gone, and the last person to enter the hospital that night was Tenma himself to visit Junkers. Eva followed Tenma that night to a parking garage as he chased after Junkers. She then heard 3 shots fired, and eventually, although she didn't disclose this for a very long time, she saw a blonde, handsome man walk down from the top floor. Tenma chased Junkers up to the top, where a man shot Junkers 3 times before leaving. This man was Johan, the same child that 9 years ago disappeared from the hospital. He admits there that it was him that poisoned the hospital director and the other 2. He did it for Tenma, as a thank you for saving him. After all, the first wish he heard from Tenma's mouth was his desire for their deaths. He shares with Tenma that he thinks of him as a father figure and has no desire to kill him, despite Tenma knowing of Johan's past. This illogicality in his actions is the emotional tie Johan has to him, another being the fact that no one will believe Tenma when he tells them of Johan's existence. He knows that Tenma will be stuck with the blame for the murders, both at the hospital and the foster families, due to his presence at Junkers' death. Therefore, Tenma has just become the prime suspect for countless murders. Lunge takes Tenma's testimony. Like Johan suspected, he doubts the existence of the boy, believing that Johan is a split personality of Tenma's. Although he has no evidence to convict Tenma, he pursues proof of this fact. After all, how could this disappearing boy even be involved in the hospital murders at just 10 years old? And why would Tenma be at the center of each key murder? It's just too coincidental. Tenma attempts to dig up information on where the twins must have gone after leaving the hospital 9 years ago. He finds little information to go off of besides a lead in Heidelberg, where a quote, young beautiful blonde girl lives with her parents, the Fortners, her name Nina. Tenma has discovered that on Nina's 20th birthday, her brother, Johan, will come to retrieve her from the Fortners, and just like their past foster parents, kill them and erase his past. Nina, however, still lacks any memory from being taken in by the Fortners, and does not know of her life as Anna Liebert. She attends college, and besides a few strange emails from an anonymous individual, her life is rather normal. She assumes the person behind the emails is a nice man who she hopes to meet and get to know, fond of his choice of poetry. The emailer invites her to meet at the churchyard at 7 on her birthday, to which she agrees to, unaware of the consequences of this choice. The details on the night of the Fortners murder. A little before 7, Nina leaves home to the church meeting grounds. Sometime after 7, Tenma and the news chief that assisted him in finding her address arrived at the Fortners' home. Hearing that she left, Tenma races to find Nina, while the news chief stays with the Fortners and calls the police. Only the phone line has been severed. The Fortners, along with the news chief, are killed. Tenma finds Nina at the churchyard after 8:30. A gardener who attends the shrubbery has been paid a large sum of money by Johan to keep Nina there while her foster parents are murdered. She and Tenma incapacitate the man, bind him using Tenma's tie, returning to the Fortners' home only to find the 3 dead. Nina goes into a shock response, similar to the night of the murder of the Lieberts. Memories of her life returning, stopping just shy of her childhood in Prague. That gate wouldn't be opened for some time. While Tenma is attempting to find a way to get help, 2 detectives arrive, claiming to be answering a distress call, despite there being no power to the house, hence no way to call the police. They offer to take him to the station. In the squad car, Tenma becomes suspicious of the pair, reflecting on the lack of an actual call, as well as the visible blood on the driver's coat, deducing that this pair must be paid off by Johan and involved in the Fortners murder. He, with Nina, jumps off a bridge to escape the police, hiding out until he can figure out their next steps. Since Nina is a prime witness both to the events last night and with her memories returning from the murder of the Lieberts, she can also prove the existence of Johan and his role in their murders, solving the entire mystery around the serial murders and Tenma. Before Tenma can get her to testify, testify though, she disappears, deciding to hunt down her brother herself, leaving Tenma with nothing to do but return to his hospital. Unbeknownst to Tenma or Nina, there was a fourth murder that took place that night. The gardener, killed by Johann, but the only evidence found at the scene of the crime was a single tie, easily traced back to the owner by Lunge. He approaches Eva, who has been marked as the buyer of the tie, and while at first she denies Lunge the name of who she bought it for, after attempting to blackmail Tenma into getting back together with her by threatening if he doesn't, she will pin the murder of her father on him and testify the tie found at the gardener murder was his. And he does exactly that, Tenma walking away, dismissing anything that comes out of her drunkard mouth. He's become focused on one thing and one thing only, preventing any more deaths at the hand of the monster that he has brought back to life, and the only way to do that is to slay it. With Eva's testimony, Lunge now has all the evidence needed to pin countless murders on Tenma. He's been able to make a rational claim to why Tenma would kill the foster families, painting him as an emotionless killer with a personality split that commits these acts. He attempts to arrest Tenma at the hospital, but upon arrival he's blocked by the doctor's patients, who know in their heart and soul that Tenma would not commit such crimes. He saves lives, not take. They refuse to let the police by. The blockade allows Tenma enough time to escape in an ambulance, disappearing from the public eye. It's been half a year since Tenma became a wanted fugitive. Over this time, he's trained under a former mercenary in firearm usage, learned that Johann is wiping his past and killing his former foster families, learned about the massacre at Kinderheim, and has even taken in a child named Dieter. Originally, he had tried to drop the boy off at an orphanage, but Dieter refused to leave Tenma's side, desiring to travel with the man that had saved him instead. Dieter's original foster father was a very abusive man, obsessed with trying to recreate Johann. He was the lone surviving instructor of 511, the one who asked Johann how he was able to create such anarchy. Tenma took Dieter away from this man, which is how we ended up where we are. The pair travels to Frankfurt, looking for a man known as the Baby, a lead Tenma received by interrogating one of the detectives who was involved in the Fortners murder. The corrupt detective is currently on the run for drug charges, and quickly spills the location of the Baby when threatened. Over at the BKA investigation office, Lunge investigates the murder of a prostitute whose name is very familiar, Helena Novikova. Johann created a cover story for her death, planting a false rumor that she was involved in an affair with a shady banker, who coincidentally died in a house fire just before Lunge could question him. While dealing with the fallout of his suspect's death, Eva visits him, angry that he has not yet caught Tenma. Having no cases besides the serial murders to solve now, Lunge throws himself deeper into work, his wife and daughter leaving him due to his neglect of their existence in favor of his job. Still, Eva is impatient with his speed and decides to find Tenma herself and kill him. She's under the impression this is the only way she can truly move on and find happiness once again. The Baby, a neo-Nazi right-wing extremist, one of the four pillars to the largest organized crime syndicate in Germany. His goal, unite Germany under the rule of Johann, who he believes to be the next Führer, a successor for Hitler. While he has never met Johann, he believes by burning a foreigner town, where a large portion of the Germany-Turkish population lives, he'll gain the approval of Johann, and in turn, he will lead them. This, he also believes, is the goal of the organization he is a part of. What isn't at first known is that all four bosses of the syndicate have their own unique reasons for seeking out the boy, each only using the other parties to their own benefit. While investigating the Baby, Nina and Tenma are both captured. Nina is taken by Gunther, one of the leaders that is planning to meet with Johann, to the meeting grounds, hoping that Nina acts as a motive to allure Johann out of the shadows. Tenma, on the other hand, is taken in by General Wolf, the third pillar to the organization. The location he is taken to is the same as Nina's, but when arriving at the mansion, they find Gunther along with all his men dead, Nina missing from the scene, in pursuit of her brother who had disclosed his location to her in a message on the wall. Brushing over the countless bodies lining the walls, Wolf tells Tenma that he never really cared about the other organization's factions. He just needed to use the manpower to help find the boy. He tells him of the day he curiously asked Johann about how he felt 15 years ago, how he reached the realization of what Johann meant by "you will soon know how I feel." Since that day, Johann had killed everyone around him, his wife, children, relatives, henchmen, friends. Wolf had shown a desire to understand Johann's feelings, and so Johann decided to show him the fear and despair of living secluded, no one to call you by your name. Wolf fears the monster he saved, that he helped create, sending it to 511. He begs Tenma to kill the monster. After Tenma, Nina, and Dieter help prevent the Turkish town fires, Nina tells Tenma to examine the message Johann left at the warehouse. The monster inside me is about to explode. There was another note left by Johann to Tenma prior to this, both direct quotes from the Czech picture book, The Monster with No Name. At this moment, it's known that Johann has no memory of this book, of where it came from, but it seems stuck in him are pieces from it, memory fragments that he writes out sending it to his victims before they die, and leaving for Tenma to find. We know Johann isn't necessarily evil by design, but has chosen to become what he was created into. Since he has no identity of his own, when reading that book when he was young, he must have associated with it, causing him to disassociate himself with his actions. The monster inside of him influencing him to commit violence. The monster inside wanting to be the last one at the end of the world, while the true Johann that's buried deep in his psyche craves the perfect suicide that he comes to desire later. But until that realization, Johann marches down the path of world destruction. Johann has taken a part-time job reading Latin books to Germany's biggest economic figure, Schubert, on Fridays. This allows him to keep a watchful eye on Edmund, the Thursday Reader, who he is convinced to pose as Schubert's son. Schubert is ecstatic to have his son return to him, but unbeknownst to the three, Schubert's real son, Karl, is the boy that reads Latin on Tuesdays. Johann eventually figures this out and convinces Edmund to kill himself, using the boy's guilt as ammo, while he befriends Karl, altering his plan from using a Doppler after hearing Karl's life story. It seems the similarities to Johann's own has touched the usually emotionless boy. He cries heavily on Karl's behalf. It may seem strange, but while Kinderheim 511 may have washed him of emotions, they are never truly gone. They're only lost, but for a while. This trigger causes Johann to have some sort of deep connection with Karl, throwing aside Edmund, while it would have just been easier to take Karl out of the picture. He has some sort of desire to reunite the father and son, legitimately. While Johann is playing chess in Munich, both Nina and Tenma play catch-up. Nina has gotten a lead that Johann is in Munich after nearly being executed on behalf of Roberto, one of the children of 511. At some point, Johann had convinced Roberto to serve him, doing the dirty work that he can't himself. Roberto's drive is to see the scenery of the end, something Johann talks about often, something he has seen many times. The scenery may be a metaphor or allegory for the bareness that resides within Johann. His nihilism. He lacks any real connections in this world. The only two lives he has desired to spare at this moment was his other half and the man he wants to bear witness to the destruction, to break his perfect morals. On the other hand, Roberto sees these two spared lives as weaknesses and has decided on his own that they should die. Nina barely escapes this encounter alive, making her way to Munich after fleeing the scene. Tenma doing the same after talking to a friend, Dr. Gillian, a college classmate that has become a criminal psychologist. He has helped deduce that Johann would be in Munich based on the testimony of a serial killer he is researching, who seems to have been ordered by Johann to perform a murder on his behalf. And while most of the main players are migrating to Munich, Roberto makes moves to tie up loose ends in Dusseldorf. As we know, Eva saw Johann's face that night of Junker's murder, but only she is aware of this fact. Johann never saw her. But what he does know is that the director had taken photos of him while he was at the hospital, these being kept in a binder that is currently in the hands of his daughter. Wanting to erase his footsteps, Roberto is ordered by Johann to destroy these photos and Eva along with it. Roberto gets close to Eva before threatening her, but she is smart enough to use the photos as leverage, having hid them, preventing Roberto from killing her on the spot. She tells Roberto to let her be the one to kill Tenma. He laughs at this idea, but takes her up on it. Only the minute she gets a gun, she tries to shoot the hitman. It seems that she doesn't desire Tenma's death, but for him to rot in prison as punishment for not taking her back. She is wounded by Roberto, but eventually recovers from her wounds, returning to her day-long drinking binges. Edmund's suicide has largely gone on unquestioned, that is, excluding one detective who believes that there is more to the case, Richard Brown, former policeman that is now a PI after being let go following an incident where he shot a 16-year-old serial killer while drunk on duty. While it may seem like the killer had this coming, especially given he had a weapon, in the eyes of the German law, Richard was in the wrong. He attends a psychiatrist who has helped him overcome his alcoholism and built up trauma, Raycon. The two have become close friends. While looking over some of his old unsolved cases, Richard deduces one pivotal connection between 4 unique unsolved murders, Schubert. But it isn't that Schubert committed these acts. All the victims had good, positive relationships with the man. The murders, though, seem to have been done to isolate him. While this is coming to light, Karl has been reunited with his father, and Johann is Schubert's acting secretary, having taken the position after being offered by Schubert as thanks for bringing him and his son together. Richard has noticed that Johann also has connections to these unsolved murders, specifically Helena, Karl's mother, and Edmund. There is currently a fat, older prostitute that is posing as Helena, a woman Johann originally used as a method of drawing out Schubert and proving the authenticity of his Doppler Edmund. This woman is very loose-lipped and spills information that exposes Johann's ties to the suicide and murder to Richard. He also finds Johann's quote-unquote parents, the Lieberts, the two of which cover for the boy, despite Richard knowing that their real son died at a very young age. They even went as far as replacing replacing the birth certificate to indicate that he was still alive following a public record fire. Johann, we know, replacing the dead child. Richard warns them of the danger they are in, the murders Johann has committed. With the help of Raycon, they have strung the murders in Munich to the Foster family murders, and even the ones in the hospital, thanks to Tenma's original testimony of a man named Johann committing these acts. They become aware of his innocence and contact Gillian to fill them in on the situation at hand. Despite this, the Lieberts refuse to leave their home, kicking Richard out. They simply wait for their boy to return, and when he does, he cuts another branch off his past. Johann targets Richard after hearing from his parents that he is digging into Johann's past. He takes the detective out to a bar and uses his charismatic tactics to convince Richard to kill himself. He uses Richard's situation with his wife and child that have been separated from him to sink him into a deeper hole, convincing Richard that he isn't worthy of seeing his daughter again. He isn't worthy of overcoming his alcoholism. He killed a child. Was even drunk when he did that. Johann has the ability to coerce people into seeing only parts of the truth, blending it with lies, causing them to question their memory. He skillfully executes that here, making Richard jump from the roof after falling back into his old ways, drinking a whole bottle of liquor. Raycon doesn't believe Richard committed suicide, having made plans to see his daughter the very next day. It just doesn't make sense. While pondering this, Raycon himself is targeted to be killed, Roberto posing as a patient, admitting to murder right in front of him. Raycon realizes the danger he's in, that Johann has come after him, just as he did to Richard. He knows too much. He flees his office, Tenma saving his life, covering his escape. He thanks Tenma over dinner, the two sharing information on Johann, Raycon having tracked him as a secretary for Schubert. Tenma decides that it's time. He'll kill the monster here. Dr. Gillian is visited by Lunch, who suspects that he knows where Tenma went. Gillian tries to make Lunch aware of Tenma's innocence, even providing photo evidence that Johann is a real person and is the one committing the murders. But Lunch denies the facts in front of him. Gillian performs a psychoanalysis of the investigator, making him aware of his shortcomings, aware of his fear of uncertainty, shown through his act of typing, his fear to make a mistake that's caused him to rationalize Tenma as a serial killer, despite the lack of evidence. Because if Tenma were to be innocent, that would mean Lunch was wrong. His reason for existing, his fixation on work and record of never being wrong, shattered. His world crumbled. Lunge leaves, deciding not to heed Gillian's words, still certain that Tenma is the killer. The seeds of doubt have been planted, Lunge just unaware of their presence. The date has been set, September 4th, 1997. Schubert will donate his entire book collection to the College of Munich. There, Johann will use Roberto to assassinate Schubert, allowing him to seize more power in the man's company. There, Tenma will assassinate Johann. There, Nina will confront her brother. There, Lunge will prevent Johann, who he still believes is Tenma's split personality, from assassinating Schubert. All the major players of this story converge at this set location and date, but something only days before the event drastically changes the events that will transpire. Recently, Johann has convinced children to play a game where they see who will fall off a building and die first. It's one of his long-running methods of creating chaos amongst the world order. One of the boys he watches over asks him for a book, and so Johann looks in the library for one to bring the kid. That day, he stumbles upon a specific book that calls to him, a book with the title, The Monster with No Name. He examines this book, and in a flash, his memories flood back into his mind. All his memories. It's too much for him. He's unable to keep his composure, letting out a verbal scream before collapsing to the ground. The memories from Prague, his memories of being Nina's double for 6 years, her memories of the Red Rose Mansion, of his mother's wish to kill Klaus. Everything. His mind becomes a jumbled mess, unsure of what or who he is. Aware he is not Johann, leading him to believe that he is Anna, not an individual entity, but her extension. Her trauma from Red Rose Mansion, his pinpoint for his creation as a monster, the farthest point he can recall that he became the way he is. There's only one minor memory still missing from his head, something that when resurfaced will change Johann's course of action forever. For now, his answer, while slightly different from before, remains. He needs to bring destruction on this world, but this destruction should be focused around a certain man, or men. The man with the glasses, and the man who killed his father. It isn't revenge he seeks, it's fulfillment of his mother's curse to the pair. Their deaths, if not brought on by her, then her children. Johann has a duty to uphold. His original plans overtaking Schubert's company boring in comparison, and so he abandons it, changing it on a whim. On September 4th, 1997, with the help of a librarian, Johann will set fire to the room full of the most influential people of Germany. He will leave this place and his original goal in ashes, finding new desire, a desire that alters the course of the monster's story. The day comes. Tenma's unable to go through with shooting Johann, still unable to break that Hippocratic oath he took as a doctor, that he would save lives, not take them. Roberto takes Tenma's rifle and lines up the shot on Schubert, the man Johann ordered to kill. But it seems he's left out of the loop, unaware of Johann's change. The library erupts into flames, leaving the people engulfed in smoke. Schubert watches from the stage as the fire fills the room, a split second before he became aware of Johann's true nature, aware of the darkness inside the boy. Johann approaches him in the blaze, creeping close to the nearsighted man. "Can you see what's in my eyes?" he tells him. "I was born in a town like a fairy tale. Many people died. I held the hand of my other half. There were only two like us, but we had no name." He speaks this to the man, with great darkness encased in his eyes, his words almost a riddle, as if cryptically implying his next destination of Prague. When those early child memories were gone, he assumed he was born this way, born a nihilistic monster to rid the world of humanity. But the truth was hidden. To Johann, the real monster were the ones who created him, instilled trauma on him. Now made clear to him, the monster he's after is Claus, the runner of the brainwashed readings at the Red Rose Mansion. Tenma is able to fight off Roberto, shooting him in the shoulder, his first time nearly taking a life. The man could be dead or alive. He assists in breaking the door down to let the people escape the inferno, staying inside to confront Johann, but Nina stops him from shooting her brother, pointing her gun at Tenma. She tries to speak to Johann, but he just walks away from her, unafraid of the possibility of death. She shoots at her brother, missing every shot, making it painfully aware that she can't bring herself to actually shoot him. Fear tactics like this will have no effect on a person like Johann. He escapes, Nina unable to pursue after the stage collapses on her and Schubert, Tenma putting their lives before the pursuit of Johann. Once more, the monster disappears into thin air. In the aftermath of the library fire, several are dead, many injured. Nina and Schubert remain alive, both saved by Tenma. Schubert realized something upon seeing Johann up close. Despite the hell that lied within those eyes, he shared the same features that his love Helena said her best friend's children had. Johann even mentioning his other half to Schubert during the fire. He has Carl deliver a note to Tenma to go to Prague, seek out the three frogs. That is where the twins' mother used to live. He begins his journey across the Czech border. When Johann makes his move to Prague, he dons the clothes of his childhood, once more cross-dressing, even going so far as to use Nina's dead name, Anna. His goal here is to gain information on himself and where he could find Claus, the man he wants to kill, in fulfillment of his mother's curse. While all the main players in the case of the monster make their way to Prague eventually, there are two new individuals that get wrapped up in Johann's quest prior. First is Grimmer, a man that years ago was an orphan at Kinderheim 511. Like all the children, the brainwashing left him emotionless and without memories. Having forgotten his name, he uses Grimmer as a replacement. After 511, he was trained as a spy for East Germany, eventually becoming a freelance reporter, but this was just a guise for him to pursue any meaningful information on 511. Grimmer desired to understand what happened to him and the other boys, this quest leading him to Prague, where the director that mysteriously disappeared, causing the power vacuum that Johann used to incite murder, is currently living. Petrov, now an old man living freely, escaping retribution for any human rights violations he committed by fleeing the country. Grimmer finds that he has started an illegal orphanage here in Prague, where he is continuing his research, but this time something is much different. These boys are normal, loving individuals. Petrov explains to Grimmer that he has used his methods of rewriting personalities to eliminate hatred, lust for violence, and greed from the boys, showing them true love. While his methods bend on self-righteousness, what he has done isn't inherently bad. What Petrov's role was in Kinderheim had to do with his methods. He never wanted to train the boys into emotionless killers. That was the doing of the instructors, which caused him to flee in horror of what he had created. Grimmer is unsure of how to feel in light of this, unsure if he should trust the man. He takes the kids to play soccer, asking them if they want to leave Petrov's. All of them shake their heads in disagreement. They like it there. He walks the kids home to talk to Petrov once more, but something seems off. He races up the stairs, passing by him a woman, blonde and beautiful, as the kids would later describe. He finds Petrov mortally wounded, his final words used to point Grimmer in the direction of evidence of what caused Kinderheim 511 to go so wrong. A tape holding an interview with a true monster, along with his data from the human experiment. Grimmer is given a key to the safe box, the location of the data. He plans to visit it later, but first he must deal with the fallout of this. Grimmer is taken in the station for questioning on Petrov's death. He gives his testimony, leaves, but his place in it all doesn't stop there. There's more happening beneath the surface here than meets the eye. After the USSR collapsed in the late 90s, the Czech secret police were disbanded, but they refused to let go of their power, choosing to go underground, becoming a crime syndicate. Their hope is that the tape will lead them to the monster's mother, and in turn using her as leverage to get the monster to cooperate with them in reviving the regime to its former glory. They desire Johann to become the next Hitler, or or at least the next Stalin. The secret police have a few moles within the Czech police force, one being the man who took Grimmer's testimony. He believes Grimmer knows the location of the tape. The minute Grimmer leaves, the police mark him, eventually kidnapping and torturing him, pushing him to give them the tape's location. Grimmer stays hard, refusing to give in to such violence. As they begin to waterboard him though, something odd happens, or two somethings. A beautiful blonde woman appears in the doorway, shooting one of the three men torturing Grimmer, then leaving, and the other something awakening inside Grimmer, a beast. He's given the name the Magnificent Steiner. A side effect of his time in Kinderheim is that he developed a split in his personality, a side of him that is violent and primal. It comes out when his life is threatened, almost like a guardian angel. The two other men in the room are mutilated, their face distorted beyond recognition. The scene is marked as a triple homicide, the police overlooking the scandalous nature of what happened, and labeling Grimmer as a wanted fugitive despite the evidence pointing towards the police chief torturing him. They also pin the murder of Petrov on him while they're at it. Assigned to this case is a rookie, Detective Suk. Suk has a very loyal relationship to his peers, thinking nothing of ill towards them. He shares all the information he gathers on Grimmer, initially thinking Grimmer to be the murderer, despite the testimonies from the children he's taken clearly stating that a beautiful blonde woman was the killer of Petrov. Now with the 3 new dead found, he feels forced to bring Grimmer in, even with the lack of evidence. Each night after work, he shares these troubles with a woman at a bar. She is regarded as a beautiful young blonde, Suk falling madly for her. Or should I say him? This woman, looking exactly like Nina, is none other than Johann cross-dressing. Suk acts as a major information source on the police and secret police movements, which Johann has been slowly eliminating to remove them from the picture, making it easier to obtain this tape of his past. He gives one of Suk's co-workers a bag of poisoned bonbons, knowing that he, along with the other 2 corrupt officers, would eat it, and they soon drop dead. Suk becomes a major suspect of the murders due to the fact he's the only one that benefited from their deaths. While this is going on, Grimmer has convinced Suk to, at least for now, not arrest him, and come with him to retrieve the tape that his corrupt chief and officers are after. They listen to a small portion of it before Grimmer has it stopped, the memories of 5/11 flowing back too strongly, causing him to panic. The 2 decide to meet up in roughly an hour, aware that they're being tracked by the secret police. When Suk returns to his home to gather his things, however, 2 detectives are on wait for him, telling him the 3 officers' deaths, and that he is the prime suspect. He's rather perplexed, and to add to his confusion, they find nitrate and bonbons hidden within his cabinet. There really is no talking out of this one. The detectives opt to take him in for the murders, but right before they can, Anna appears, shooting the 2 officers. Once again, Grimmer passing by her on his way to Suk's apartment. He finds Suk standing there, unsure of what he had just witnessed. From this perspective, it seems that Johann needed someone to pin the murders to so that he could once more disappear into the shadows, Suk being the perfect option. But it wasn't enough just to let the detectives take him right then and there. It wasn't destructive enough. But with the 2 dead detectives in his apartment who had marked him and found evidence to prove he committed the crimes, there was no talking your way out of that one. Suk is considered guilty without a doubt, and with Grimmer, he is on the run. Johann has greatly hindered both of the parties that are after the tape of him. Now all he needs is to retrieve it from Suk's hiding place, and he can erase one of the final pieces of evidence of his existence. Tema sees Suk's picture in the paper, along with the crime and the bonbon poison. He knows right away that this is Johann's work. Suk and Grimmer leave the tape with Suk's mother in the hospital, feeling it's much safer there, and in some ways, they were right, others not so much. The 2 are tracked by the Czech SP, who critically wound Suk, holding him at their will, attempting to get Grimmer to give away the tape's location in exchange for not repeatedly shooting Suk. This backfires as Tema knocks out their sniper, and the severe trauma of the situation awakens Grimmer's Steiner ego. He murders and severely injures every secret police agent in his proximity, Tema bearing witness to the aftermath of his destruction. He phones emergency care to the location to save the lives of everyone, including Suk. He and Grimmer exchange information on the situation, and Grimmer decides that he will hand over a note to the police that will give them hard evidence that he committed the murders, and Suk is innocent. Tema is at first apprehensive of this plan, but understands why Grimmer has decided upon this and acknowledges his path. Before the 2 part ways though, they find out Suk has been transferred to an SP hospital, the head of the former secret police meeting with them, apologizing for his use of violence, and in exchange for the tape, he'll let Suk walk free. They eventually reach an agreement that they'll let him hear the tape, but will not hand it over at the risk of him selling it and these experiments being recreated to create another monster that is too severe of a risk. The head of the SP also mentions that his nephew was taken to 511, who Grimmer recalls, his name Adolf, who we know now as Roberto. We also hear of a man that was operating in the SP during the Red Rose Mansion era, the individual in question having special permissions, his actions completely off the record, a man that wore glasses, the man known as Peter Chapek. Suk's mom is visited by a beautiful blonde woman, Johann, He takes the tape and writes over a portion of it, partly to tease Tema into the continued pursuit, and partly to scratch the important information of the tape that indicated his mother's location and detail on the Red Rose mansion. When Tema, Grimmer, and the SP head arrive, they quickly realize that Johann has already gotten what he needs and tampered with the recording. Lunge arrives in Prague, as does Nina. While Nina explores her past here and information on the Anna poser, Lunge investigates deeper into Suk's situation and its eerie similarities to Tema's. He learns that a woman named Anna Liebert was close to him, as well as what book sparked this Johann person to fall unconscious. The book that brought Lunge to Prague, one that depicts a boy standing alone at the end of the world, a monster inside him, a boy given the name Johann. It's this pivotal moment that Lunge realizes he may have made a grave mistake. Grimmer and Tema part ways, Tema in search of the Rose mansion, Grimmer prepared to go on the run after delivering a confession letter to the police to clear Suk of all charges. While Grimmer's plan goes smoothly, Tema is not so lucky. On the way to the mansion, Tema treats a boy's scraped knee, this moment of goodwill costing him greatly as he is surrounded by policemen. He is arrested and processed for the serial murders across Germany. It doesn't seem like Tema can escape his fate this time. Tema accepts his reality. He continues to plead his innocence, but knows how unlikely it is he will be set free. He at least tries to make the feds aware of Johann's existence. Meanwhile, the people who have been touched or saved by Tema over the years attempt to find ways to help him. Schubert, along with a petition from Tema's patients, recruiting the help of a well-known defense lawyer, Fitz Wiedemann, who takes on the case alongside another named Ball. At first, everything feels like it may be solved in the courtroom. Fitz recruiting Eva to provide a testimony of Johann's existence and his murder of Junkers, which would prove his existence and Tema's innocence. But when Tema is visited one day by Fitz's partner, who is none other than the still living Roberto, who makes clear his intent to murder Eva, Tema knows he must escape. He must not let any more perish due to his mistake of reviving a monster. With the help of a prison mate, Tema is able to escape during a prison transfer, once more going on the run, only this time with real charges stacked against him. While he may have not committed the murders, he is now an escaped felon with a real criminal background. He rushes to the hotel that Eva is currently staying at, but she's already gone, seemingly disappearing in thin air. He spends days there searching. While there may be a monster on the loose that he alone can kill, he refuses to let Eva die wrapped up in his mess. Tema stays in Dusseldorf momentarily. Lunge, by far the closest to the truth, has reached a pivotal moment. He's found the link between the various pen names that Klaus has undertaken over the years, and it's led him to the Red Rose mansion. He discovered from the lawyer Fitz that his father was a spy for the USSR, having some sort of connection to this mansion. The clues in his journal assisting Lunge in finding the Red Rose. He uncovers a false wall in the home, leading him to the room that was the site of the 42 murders. Framed over the mantle, the twins' mother. Behind the painting is a note leading him to believe the man behind the children's book is the source of this chain of events, the source of the monster. All he needs to do is find him. Nina and Dieter visit the mansion sometime after, but this proves too strong a stimulant for Nina's lost memory, and she collapses, overwhelmed. Luckily, a man is wandering the mansion at the same time, taking her to his home. Jaromir Lipski. This man, friendly as can be, has a dark connection to the one we know as Klaus. Lipski is his son. Ostracized at that, but his son nonetheless. For now, that remains a secret, one exposed not long after. After all the major players visit the mansion, Johann arrives there himself, burning the place to the ground. This spirals to the discovery of the corpses that line the rose bushes in the yard, the story of the massacre being shared with Tema by a dying General Wolf. Wolf tells Tema to seek out a man named Peter Chapek, the one remaining pillar of the organization that we have yet to meet. His location, back in Germany. Nina regroups with Raycon and Gillian, attempting to summon the remaining memories locked away. Both Tema and Johann shift their focus to Chapek. Tema needing information about Johann's plan, Johann fulfilling his mother's wishes for the man in glasses to die, and obtain information on Klaus's location. Chapek, on the other hand, wants to meet Johann, being one of the individuals that desire for Johann to lead them into a revival of the old Germany. It seems he, too, is ignorant to who Johann truly is. The only issue for Chapek is that he doesn't know what Johann looks like, but there is a woman that does. Having taken her from her hotel room, Chapek has hired a bodyguard named Martin to escort Eva to various parties around Germany to find and locate Johann, who, unbeknownst to Chapek, is planting himself in these situations to come in contact with him. Chapek wants Eva to point out Johann, and in an act of good faith, the boy from 511 that Johann had promised to reunite with would come forward and meet him. This boy, known as Christoph. To the members of the organization, they believe Christoph to be something like an apprentice to Johann. He attempts to act and be like Johann, but in many ways he's not. not. He's a fake. Christoph has got himself wrapped up in many scandals due to his lax approach to this way of life. He dabbled in lust, greed, and pride before being murdered to cover his ass. This being a prime example of his opposite nature to Johann, who does not have lust, nor greed or pride. He simply exists to carry out destruction. He is unbiased. Christoph is, even killing the baby out of pride when he questions Christoph's mistakes. Regardless, they do meet thanks to Eva, but it's clear that this relationship is just a means for Johann to get to Chapek, nothing more. Eva has exceeded her use. At this point, she is only a security risk. Martin is told to kill her. Having grown fond of her though, he's unable to go through with it, helping her escape. While she is able to get out unscathed, Martin is not so lucky. Temma is present at Martin's final moments. He tells him to find Eva and make sure she gets out safe. At the rendezvous point, Eva waits for a man that will not return. She meets Temma instead, knowing what this means. She cries. It seems despite her cold, harsh nature, she has refused to let go of the entire series. Martin touched a part of her she didn't know she still had. She realizes something about herself that day, but revenge boils within her. She pursues Johann, Temma trying to stop her. She finds Christoph and shoots him in the ear, causing him to break his calm and calculated character, screaming in agony. She demands to know where Johann is, but he attempts to wrestle Eva to the ground, fixing to blow off her head. Temma arrives just in time to incapacitate the man with a shot to the thigh. The two drive to the hospital, Temma demanding Christoph tell him Johann's location. He knows that Christoph, unlike Johann, does not wish to die. Unlike Johann, he does indeed fear it, like most humans do to some extent. While Eva calls an ambulance to the car's location, Temma slips out after Christoph tells him the location of Johann. Temma leaves Christoph with a few words for Eva. I don't want you to get involved. This is where her journey ends. Johann awaits in a villa, that villa belonging to the man named Chapek. Since the death of the baby, Chapek has been on edge. He's afraid of death, afraid of Johann, the monster he played a part in creating. He thought that when he met Johann that he would just take over, lead them to a new frontier, but it hasn't panned out that way. He has no clue what Johann's goal is, no clue what he plans to accomplish. These thoughts leave him on the verge of insanity. He even shoots his driver, who he thought was reaching for a gun, turns out just to be a pack of cigarettes. Having done this, he runs the remaining way to his villa, meeting Johann. He's asked about Klaus, Chapek stating that he is still alive. His son Lipsky in Prague may know where he is. Before he leaves to find this man though, Johann wants to talk to his sister once more. Chapek fulfills this request, bringing Nina to the village. The two talk about their past, specifically that night following the massacre. Johann talks of the events as if he was the one who was taken that day, who experienced the mansion massacre. But Anna tells him that he's wrong. She was the one who was taken. Johann was waiting at home. It's this pivotal moment when Johann wakes up from the dream. He realizes that Nina and him are actually two separate entities, with two separate sets of experiences. It's this devastating realization that makes both twins somewhat suicidal. Johann had his understanding of his identity destroyed just when he thought he'd finally figured out where the monster in him came from, and Nina blames herself for sharing those experiences with her brother, indirectly contributing to the process of producing a nihilistic monster. Johann leaves his sister in search of Klaus. He has come to the conclusion that this monster that lives in him was bred by Klaus, but he has lost the understanding of exactly when it was created. Johann had hoped that, like in the monster with no name, that he was simply the prince, cursed by a monster in his belly. But as he digs further, he reaches a painful realization. Maybe he is the monster in the belly. It's not some outside force that's the monster, but he himself. He created the monster as well. He gave it more power to commit these atrocities. While it may be true that he is a monster, it's also true that there are others in this world. Klaus has been a large contributor to the monster he is. With that man, he will commit the perfect suicide, erasing any evidence or memory of who he is, both as Johann and as the nameless boy. He shouldn't exist, a staunch comparison to the final page of The Monster with No Name. That revelation from the memories, that suffering that he has experienced, he wants none of it. He wishes for the finality of death, one with no traces of his trauma, the being that was Johann, the monster inside him, all of it left behind, the perfect suicide. This desire he had to be the last one standing at the end of the world is pointless in the light of his new realizations. They are meaningless. Temma stops Nina from blowing her brains out, shaken up by the return of her memories and the effect she had on making the monster that has taken root in her brother. That's why she couldn't bring herself to shoot him moments earlier, because like the god of peace, it would have been equivalent to shooting herself in a mirror. If we look at what Nina said back in episode 57, if I had been taken, would I have been the one to become the monster? Johann is what she easily could have become had she consciously retained those memories from that day, but Johann was their rock. He carried the weight of those atrocities committed to her on her behalf. She desperately wishes to stop him from what he's about to do, the sin he's about to commit. Chapek points them in the direction of Lipsky, of Klaus, and the two leave. The driver that Chapek shot is found, Chapek's own men killing him, assuming that he has lost his sanity. With his death, the organization collapses, all 4 pillars of leadership dead. All roads lead to Ruhenheim, a small village nestled in a mountainous valley in Germany, the town where a man named Klaus has lived out the past decade. Grimmer and Lunge are the first to arrive, that is if you don't count Johann, whose plan has already been set into motion. Similar to the massacre at Kinderheim 511, Johann uses the animosity already seeded within the village to incite violence. He first kills a man to make a couple that won the lotto on edge, then the few policemen in the city. He hands out firearms like they're candy to the residents, all with the help of an elderly couple, potentially a family he has used his charm on to take him in as their dead son, and of course, Roberto. Grimmer and Lunge remain at a hotel in the center of the village, ran by the man Klaus. They make him aware that they know his past. He makes no excuses for what he did, fully aware of his sins, accepting of whatever may come his way. This angers Grimmer, who believes the man should pay for his crimes. He wants to see him exposed for his actions, not just sit idly in some faraway fairy tale village. And as they have this discussion, it begins to pour. Bodies everywhere. Shop windows broken. The town bar littered in massacre. Roberto has been moving around, egging the situation on. A town drunk, the father of a bullied boy, wandering around paranoid, carrying a gun. The rain has shut off any emergency dispatch that can be provided, this town being truly shut off from the rest of the world. Temma and Nina arrive separately to find the massacre. While Nina searches for her brother, Temma escorts women and children out of town. Lunge decides to head off Roberto, who is pulling the strings of the slaughter. Grimmer guards Klaus and protects the boy that has found himself in the thick of things. Grimmer tries to take out some of the shooters that have surrounded the hotel, but out of nowhere, a woman strolls towards the buildings, straight through the street, right in the shooting zone. Seeing the death of another innocent is too much for Grimmer. He holds her in his arms, seething with rage. He's reached his limit. Temma is directed to the hotel by Lunge, who claims he's on his way to find Roberto. As he walks past the man he so desperately wanted to prove was a murderer, he apologizes. He admits he was wrong. So very wrong. It's time he owned up for his mistakes. He makes his way up to the room where he and Roberto engage in a shootout, each wounding the other gravely. The victor, undecided. Temma arrives at the hotel, but it seems the fight is over. Grimmer sits in a chair, badly injured. He tells Temma that this time, the Steiner did not need to come out. The blood shed before him was his own volition, his own rage. In his final moments, he sheds tears, telling Temma that he's not sad that he's dying, but finally feeling the emotional weight of losing his son years ago. Kinderheim wasn't able to take his emotions away. They were only lost, wandering within him until now, finally returning. As he leaves this world, both the boy and Klaus cry over his death. Temma exits the hotel, the boy and Klaus following him. He tells them what he's about to do, the man he's about to kill. Klaus insisting he lets him bear the burden. He is the originator of the monster, the one who led him down this path. He should bear the weight of his own sins. Grimmer's passing being pinnacle to his realization. Temma allows him to come, but mentions he is equally at fault for the past decade of events. He's the one who brought the monster back alive. He should be the one to undo that. Roberto and Lunge are still at each other's throats. Roberto explains how Johann told him he could not kill Temma till the end. Johann wished to show him something, that being the scenery of the end. A place that Roberto has longed to see, but Johann has refused to show him. In the middle of town, Temma and Johann confront each other, Klaus and the boy present as well. As Temma prepares to shoot Johann, Klaus pushes him aside, claiming that this is his cross to bear. But before he can pull the trigger, Klaus is shot by Roberto, killed, collapsing at Johann's feet. Roberto begs Johann to show him the scenery of the end. Johann looks down at Roberto, telling him he will never see it. He's not capable. Roberto passes. The truth behind the reason Roberto could not see the scenery of the end is because he is not empty like Johann, nor pushed down that road like Temma. He still holds on to that pleasant memory of the cocoa that keeps him anchored from true nihilism. Roberto only pretends to be empty. Johann turns to Temma, asking him if he understands now. Understands that the only thing people are equal in is death, not life. Temma points his gun towards the boy, Johann putting his finger on his forehead, a symbol of him testing fate. Since he finds no meaning in life, a reason he can so easily kill without feeling, he's basically tempting death. He does not care either way. The two lock eyes, and for a moment they feel transported to another world, one lacking in meaning, the scenery of the end. A fictitious world that Temma begins to see as he etches closer to killing Johann, abandoning his Hippocratic oath that he holds so dear. The world around them representing the nihilistic thinking Johann has sunk Temma Tenma into, but only for a moment. Nina brings him out once more. She yells out to her brother, forgiving him for all he's put her through, begging him not to go through with this, not commit this suicide. Johann sees Tenma's eyes shift, his trigger fingers slacking. He grabs the boy that came with Tenma, holding a gun to his head, forcing Tenma into choosing his life over the boy's. This is Johann's destined end. He will not have it any other way. Tenma's hands shake. He knows what he has to do. He just doesn't know if he has the will to do it. He squeezes the trigger, and then... The drunkard, father of the boy, fires the killing shot. When asked later during his testimony, he tells of a four-headed demon holding his son, pure evil being radiated from the beast. This story, while seeming crazy and illogical to us, depicts a biblical representation of the Antichrist, an interesting final representation of what Johann was, the harm he has caused remaining, but the future ever so brighter. The case wraps up. Tenma is relieved of all charges held against him, the police issuing him an apology. A year passes. In 1999, he joins the MSF, Doctors Without Borders. Both Dieter and Nina return to school, doing their best to adapt to normal life. Suk, able to prove Grimmer's innocence, allowing the man to rest as a hero. Ava turns her life around and becomes a kitchen interior designer, also achieving sobriety, showing personal growth that wouldn't be expected from her. People really can change. Lunge is now a police academy professor, allowing him time to see his daughter and grandchild, attempting to make up for the years he had spent ignoring her, obsessed with work. It seems that everything is wrapped up. That is, besides Johann's existence. That night in Ruhenheim, Johann was actually saved by the same man who operated on him before, removed a bullet from his head one time before. Tenma saves the monster's life yet again, but we're left wondering why. Tenma operating on Johann a second time shows that despite what he's been through, his ideal, that all life is equal, has not been shaken. He's held on to that by choosing to not kill the man that he's been chasing for years and has caused him so much torment. He shows that his morals can be intact. Tenma visits Johann's hospital room, where he's been in a coma since the incident. Tenma had visited the twins' mother, who is still alive, living in a nursing home, and found out the children's real names. When he mentions this, Johann sits straight up, seemingly awakened out of a coma, or just faking it up until now. He shares with Tenma a vital memory, one that seemed to shake Johann to the core, one that made him question his own being, his personal worth. It was the day they came to take one of the twins, their mother unsure of who to give, which twin was which. It left him wondering who was the unwanted one. Tenma blinks. Johann is lying back down. Was that whole exchange just in his head? He leaves the hospital room, the next frame showing an empty bed, window open, the breeze escaping into the room. Did he just escape? Or was Johann even brought back to life? Regardless, the monster is gone, soon to be forgotten by the passage of time, but soon to be replaced by another. A question remains for us to ponder. Who was the true monster? Johann, who chose to become the monster with no name, killing and destroying humanity of his own free will, deciding to become the person that he did. Klaus and Chapek, experimenting on the boy, tampering with a child's mind who obviously already had psychological issues, attempting to create the next Hitler. His mother, for forcing upon him a lack of identity, being a double of his sister, for ingraining in him vengeance upon Klaus and Chapek for what they did to her. What I arrived at is, there is not one individual to blame here. We as humans create our own monsters. Our actions day by day decide the fates of others and the fate of ourselves. The slightest decision could be what separates you or someone you know from becoming Grimmer or becoming Johann. Both had monsters within them, but used them to different ends. Throughout our lives, we may have been told that monsters are not real, but that statement just seems to be a lie. They walk amongst us. They live inside us. But our human will, our ability as beings with conscious thinking, to choose to be better than the animalistic instinct inside us, choosing to go down a different path than of destruction, separates us from our monsters. We can choose to be better. We can choose to be like Tenma. It's as Klaus said, we have the decision to choose what we become. We do that each day. If there's anything you take away here, in this world we live in, and the presence of monsters that aren't in our closets or hiding under our beds, but ones that live within ourselves, it's up to you to ask yourself what you will choose to do with the monster that lives inside you.